Hey y'all, so I'm actually going to bleep out my camera just because I am in the process of doing something. I just got home. But first things first, I want to say hey to everybody out there. Today is Monday, and I really hope that you guys had a wonderful, wonderful day. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put you guys on mute really quick, or not mute, but just take the camera off. And I'll be back with some commentary. Give me 1 second. Perfect. So I wanted to talk about a woman's intuition and why a lot of women are not listening to that intuition. First and foremost, a woman has a gut, right? And a lot of times, I'll tell you now, my intuition doesn't nag me in my gut, it nags me in my brain. Right? I tell you guys over and over and over again that I'm an analyzer, meaning that anything you throw at me, any situation I go through, I'm going to be analyzing it like real big time, right? And so what happens with the analyzing process is, again, it's not a feeling in my gut necessarily. But what happens is my intuition will replay a scenario or replay certain words, or I'll really be sitting thinking about that one thing. So let's say, for example, an entire day goes by and somebody says something to me that's a bit out of pocket, but I don't really know what it is, right? I don't really know why I feel the way that I feel. My mind will analyze the day, and then it will stay stuck on that comment, right? Until my mind processes it properly. So a lot of it for me is my intuition. I've got like a third person in my brain, like telling me, no, don't do this. Yes, go this way. No, don't do this. Yes, they were disrespecting you. Yes, you're okay. Like my intuition is like a third voice in my head, right? That good and bad, and then in the middle, it's that, I guess it's kind of like the Jiminy Cricket on my shoulder kind of deal, right? And what happens with a lot of young women, because women are not investing in women, and what I mean by this is when I was growing up, right? I had women in my life, a ton of women, okay, a ton of women, who taught me how to do my hair, how to clean, how to look, how to dress, how to carry myself, right? Really showed me the kind of woman that I really wanted to be, right? But when it came down to affirmation, when it came down to teaching, when it came down to real love and understanding, those things were not the case, right? And a lot of young Black women, a lot of Black women, unfortunately, go through a similar cycle where the women in their lives, they may have a ton of women, but the women aren't really teaching the girls how to be women. And I'm going to be very real with you guys. Some of what these women should be learning, it can only be taught via a woman, not a man, right? But what happens is you have a generation of parents who are moms, for example, my mom, right? Who, instead of teaching me why I was to do something, right? She would just yell at me or criticize me. That was the biggest thing. Are you stupid? Da, 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 da. Going off. My mom would then get on the phone with my grandma and her cousins, and they'd be sitting around talking to me about me. And maybe my mom may have exaggerated some of those instances, right? But now I got family looking at me crazy. So a lot of times the only reason I would do certain things is because I had a lot of pressure on me, right? Not because somebody was actually guiding me and teaching me and telling me, hey, baby, this is why you need to do X, Y, and Z. A lot of households, you hear this word, what is it? Because I said so, right? My daughter is so funny because right now she's really hooked, her and her crew, they're hooked on this saying where, how they be like, I'm a Black mom, so of course I'm gonna tell you because I've said so. um while I do feel like that answer is appropriate for some things a kid may ask, it's not appropriate for others. There's a lot of things that I literally walk my daughter through on the thought process, not to control her, but to help her to understand how things got to where they are. Meaning that if my job is to solve your problem, I'm going to sit down and tell you this is why we need to move X, Y, and Z. This is what we need to do. I feel like a lot of Black moms, not all, but a lot, are very hard on their daughters, right? And so what happens is it kind of pushes the daughter in this space of, well, am I right? Am I not right? Am I right? Maybe I'm being a little too much. Do I got an attitude, or maybe I need to turn the attitude? Like, you really got, it's the same thing with these microaggressions that I was dealing with. But the only difference is I'm a little bit more skilled in that department than to feel, whatever. But what it does is it question it, like the way some of us are brought up, right? It makes us question ourselves, right? The lack of feeling of love. I'll tell you guys now, my mom was not the woman I could go up to and give a hug to. Shit like that is what really affects the woman or the young woman, because it's not even the woman, it's the 18, the 19, the 20, the 21, the 22-year-old. They don't have anybody guiding them, right? And I think at 18, we just assume we're grown, but we don't need any guidance. Well, when it comes to life and real life shit, we kind of need some guidance. And if you don't have it, if you're not taught it young, if you don't have it, naturally you're going to start questioning yourself. It's all about how you were raised. Did your parents affirm you, or did they ignore you? Did your parents say, you know what, I understand that hurt you, and walked you through the thought process of why you shouldn't take it personal? And or did they tell you, just suck it up and deal with it? You see what I'm saying? Because the approach of the parent dictates how the kid responds, right? So when the child is, if she's always taught, like my mom was super strict. That generation of parents was different, okay? Where I got yelled at all the time, right? Even when I thought I was doing right, something went wrong, right? And then my mom, she was very, like I said, very no bullshit, very strict. Even if I said something that was a little bit of eubonics, right? If I said ain't instead of isn't, right? Of course, I would get slapped. I was a kid that had to deal with shit like that. So if you can imagine, I think a part of us as kids, one thing I did not lose was me being myself, because I was so rebellious at a young age. However, when I got older, because I was who I was, it made me, I began to question. Again, my parents saw it as, well, we taught you everything you should know. But a lot of times, I'll tell you now, I could not stand firm in a lot of my decisions and my choices out of fear of making somebody mad, out of fear of not fitting in, out of fear of not being accepted. Like, there's so many things that go into that, right? That as you grow as an adult, as you become a young woman, I want to be very clear, 22 is a young woman. These aren't women that have their mental all the way developed, right? You're still dealing with little girls mentally, right? So if you're not if they don't have a mom, a dad, right? Somebody in their life that can say, nah, you're probably not, this ain't the one. Like, they're going to make decisions via trial and error. And that's what life really is about. So in my situation, for example, I was told by my father to go find a man. I used to cry to my dad all the time. Dad, why can't I get ahead? I'm crying because I'm trying to, I'm trying to live this life that I felt like I deserved at such a young, stage of my life. And my dad kept telling me, you need a man, you need a man, you need a man. My dad did not realize that you needing a man, that wasn't it. Like, telling me, oh, well, you need to just go get married. It don't really work that way, right? But according to my dad, that's what I needed to do. And as a result of, I made decisions that realistically weren't necessarily the best for me, right? Obviously, I've got a kid out the deal. Obviously, I learned a lot in terms of self-love and loving myself and trusting myself enough to know that I got this regardless. But it took a lot of life, experience to know that when my intuition speaks, I better listen to it, right? Now you guys see me in a phase where my intuition is speaking, for example, I hear it, I receive it, and now I'm just trying to mitigate the circumstances around it so that I can still live my life the way I need to be able to live it, right? So I'm actually going through that phase now. Every time you guys see me online and I'm talking about my work day or whatever, a lot of the stuff that I'm feeling is intuition. I just don't know how else to say it's my intuition. Do you get what I'm saying? So if I'm saying, hey, look, I'm feeling I'm disrespected, 9 times out of 10, it ain't really that I'm feeling disrespected as much as I know I'm being disrespected, but I'm being polite and not trying to put my shit onto you, right? So it's one of those things where I will say that unless a woman is trained on how to utilize her intuition, she's not gonna know when a situation is necessarily bad for her, right? Same thing with I was watching a live that kind of triggered this a little bit. But the man was like, well, so much for a woman's intuition, because a woman was saying, yeah, I got with this man. I wanted to change the tide. I didn't want to be a single mom. I got with an older man. He seemed to have all the things that I wanted. But after I got pregnant, the man changed. Now, with that being said, you had an ignorant male in the comments talking about, well, see, I guess there's no point in women's intuition. And y'all, it don't work like she's supposed to know who the fuck. Now, I'll say this, it probably does work like that, right? But as a Pisces, my intuition, as long as I'm tapped in, is a lot stronger than most. Meaning that a lot of the things that aren't said, I can peep game a mile away, easy, right? Whereas someone else may not be able to. Even when I was younger, for example, I would have friends, right? Quote unquote friends. And I remember girls trying to get into the circle, right? But my circle was my circle. And we didn't really let girls into the circle unless we approved of you. That's just what it was. And I remember girls, again, I don't do hood rats. I don't do like ghetto. Like that's just not my thing, right? There is a big difference in difference in blacks, okay? And so obviously I'm hanging out with my girls. I've known them for years, right? And we had some girl who was very hood, very ratchet, like just not, didn't carry herself to par, like just really not my type. The girl that was always fighting and shit like that. And I remember her approaching us, and I remember telling my friends I was nice to her, but after a while I was talking to my friends and I'm like, I'm not really feeling girl, right? And so in those instances, yes, right? Intuition kicks in. When anybody tries to come into my space or my circle, I'm reading you, I'm analyzing you, I'm observing you, and I probably know who you are before you do in about 5 minutes or less. That's really part of one, it's part of being a Pisces, but two, that's what intuition is about, right? So, meaning that now that I'm in the phase of my life, 30 and up has been very difficult because I see my intuition works well. So imagine I've got men wanting to talk to me, but I'm peeping game before the things that they say. They may not even know that it's triggering me, it's repelling me, right? But certain things you say, certain things you do, and I'm like, nah, I'm good, right? Because I already know what comes with that. Now, the man could be the exception, but that's not a risk I'm willing to take. Like I'm not willing to do high risk type of situations, right? In terms of relationships, okay? So for me personally, I will say this, after trial and error, right? Because a lot of times my intuition said one thing, and because I loved somebody, right? Because I was in love, because I cared about the person probably more than I cared about myself, right? I would ignore my intuition. Now, what would tell me is if I met a man, I really liked him or whatever, we kicked it. A lot of the men that I knew, we were friends first. That's a fact. Okay. So a lot of times I already know the man, I know his character to some degree, right? And I know that I like this person. Okay. Whether it's I met him at work and we bantered back and forth, and I'm like, oh, you got a cool personality, whatever, right? So a lot of times as a woman, you have that intuition, and a lot of times you may not have it right away. Okay. I may think negatively of you, but something that men would like to say, and they say all the time, is I'm not the last guy, right? So naturally, because of what you're told, you're like, okay, well, maybe I'm just being too cynical, right? Maybe I'm just being a little bit bitter, right? Maybe I should give this guy a chance. That is what runs through every fucking woman's mind. It's not like women are saying, hey, look, I want to wake up today and ruin my life for the sake by getting in a relationship. No. A lot of times, if your intuition, if they ignored that intuition, they had that original thought, it was the male who kind of convinced them that maybe they should let their guard down. Maybe they're tripping, right? And we have this, men have to get real with their dialogues and their conversations around relationships, because that is what you're telling women to do. This is what you guys, when you guys are telling me that I should need a man and that I'm no good because I don't need a man, what you're telling me is to ignore my intuition about man and give him a chance regardless. So women are actually out there doing these things. Do you understand me? They're actually saying, you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe I should give you a chance. Maybe I should ignore my intuition. Maybe that's extra baggage. Like, this is how women are really dissecting this shit, because they're too busy listening to men. They want a man so much, they're going to allow a man to manipulate them out of their fucking panties. The shit's crazy. So when you males are then turning around when the woman did left the relationship and now she's stuck with 1, 2 kids, and y'all are turning around talking about, oh, well, what happened to a woman's intuition? Bitch, isn't this what you asked for? It's very confusing. On one breath, you guys say one thing, but then you say something else that completely contradicts everything you just said. So, as a woman, if you're telling me that I should need you and that I'm no good because I don't need you, I prefer to want you, right? Because that is a different kind of love right there, right? Well, then how in the same breath are you then turning around, and how come women don't? What apparently women's intuition don't work when she's in a bad relationship? How does that work? Because if a lot of women moved off of intuition, half of these ninjas would never have a chance. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't think men really understand how far women have gone to try to make y'all feel good about yourselves. A woman will lie to herself for the sake of being with you because she loves you. Do you see what I'm saying? So even though the relationship is bad, because she loves you, she's going to try to make it work until she can't make it work no more. So that is a slap in the face for you to then turn around. Well, I guess a woman's intuition doesn't work. Well, at fucking 20, at 19, at 18, no, the fuck it doesn't. The girl's brain isn't fully developed, let alone intuition. Intuition is a whole nother level and requires a level of grounding. And so she's never been grounded. If she doesn't know self, she damn sure ain't gonna know her intuition is talking to her. Like, that's just kind of common sense. But see, these are the kinds of women, see, and this is what's so cold about it. This is why in my mind, I'm like, I'm glad I didn't get married when I really didn't want to get married, right? I mean, to be honest with you, I had an offer of marriage a long time ago, and I was like, fuck that. Okay. And part of me was because I wasn't ready to get married. I wasn't ready for that level of responsibility. And no offense, as a Pisces, I don't even know if I like you the next day. Y'all hear, I said this before. Gene Aiko is a Pisces, right? Rihanna is a Pisces. Shout out to Rihanna, though, by the way. She got married after hitting the wall and had 2 kids. So I'm just saying, I don't know what these fucking men be talking about. And shout out to A$AP Rocky, because I'm going to tell you now, that is, I don't know what's going on behind closed doors, but from what we can see, A$AP Rocky is a very confident man. There's no fucking way you're walking with Rihanna, one of the baddest to ever walk this earth, and he putting her first, right? He's really, you could tell that man is very proud of being with Rihanna, as he should. But I believe she was 33, 34, right? The same age y'all be telling us we hit the wall at. So that's not true. And I need women to stop feeding into males' bullshit, because you can always find an example that goes against what the fuck they're saying, right? And any man that's telling you you hit the wall, that's not the man for you off the rip. It ain't even your job to try to prove it, argue it, nothing. Let them keep walking, right? Because one thing I will say, if a man had the opportunity to you, he would, regardless, okay? So I'm just saying. Now, the intuition aspect of things, unless the woman is being raised, and I wouldn't even say properly, that's the wrong word, right? Because I grew up in what you would consider, at least some of my life, right? Proper, right? But it's really about investing in the child. I don't think there are a lot of parents that think like 2 steps ahead. So if I'm telling my daughter, baby, don't worry about a man, get your money up, get your education, get your place, and then get married, the kid is going to hear that. But ultimately, the question comes down to why. Because when she's faced with a circumstance where it's a man, a baby, or her career, she's got to know why she's got to make the right choice. Do you understand me? So it's almost like you're dealing with a generation of Black women who went through something very similar that the Black men are saying they go through. The only difference is Black women can't turn off the fact that we're fucking women. Black men can say, you know what, my mama treated me poorly, so I'm out. Instead of the purpose of Black women and Black men coming together is the understanding of one another's struggle, right? The understanding of what one another went through, right? Meaning that I would think that, I mean, I don't know, because I've talked to people all types of races, but if we're dating and I was spanked as a kid, right, and maybe that bothers me a little bit, you would understand that 9 times out of 10 because of the culture. You were probably spanked too. Now, are there some Black people that have never been spanked? Yes. But that generation, for the most part, they spank their kids. So in the situation where it's like, damn, my mom was hard on me. My mom was almost damn near a B, right? I don't mean to say that, y'all. But I'm just saying that's the thoughts that run through people's minds, right? So if a man can say that, why is it so hard for him to understand that possibly the daughter in the house had a similar experience as him? Because the level of compassion is not there, right? Men have no compassion, no level of empathy for the woman, but he's so quick to downgrade the woman. And something they say, when you're pointing the finger at somebody, you got two fingers pointing back at you, right? I'm just saying. So the conversation of that generation and how hard they were on the children, that goes for almost all of us, right? Whether the mom wasn't there, whether the dad wasn't there. It, like, no offense, but we all share very similar experiences. But yet a man can fix his mouth and tell a woman, well, because you didn't know he wasn't the right one at 22. Like, the man at 22 had his shit together. Like, I'm sorry. At 22, there's a lot of men that still don't have their shit together. Still homeless, still don't know what they gonna do with their lives, still ain't even tried to figure it out, right? So where is the compassion for the woman who goes through the same thing, although her reality looks a lot different? So when we tell these women, see, you can never, it's unfortunate with women, right? Because I feel like if you're chasing after what men say, you're going to be chasing forever. You're going to be trying to be whatever they want you to be forever. You're never going to be good enough no matter what you do. This is why, as a woman, I stopped appealing to men. The fuck? I'm not going to keep trying to jump through hoops and hurdles for a man that never loved me anyway. The fuck? So you got this situation where this 22-year-old girl, sounds very much like my situation, by the way, but this 22-year-old girl got into a relationship with an older man, right? And so she decides that she's going to marry this man and she's going to give this relationship the best she got. After she had her baby, the man started verbally, physically, and all that abusing her, right? That's her claims. I don't know because I wasn't there, but that's what she's saying, right? And so after about what, 6 years, she decided to dip. And then the men in the comments after her sharing her story are like, well, that's why I thought women's intuition, women, da da da, she's bitter. Huh? It's almost like y'all are telling women at my age that the 22-year-old is better, which I'm going to keep it a buck. If you're, I don't know about all women my age, but if you look good at my age, you know damn well a 22-year-old don't got shit on you. Now, maybe for pregnancy, maybe for babies, but I'm sorry. At 30, you're a grown ass woman, which means that your mental is so much different than it was when you were 20, right? Meaning that I'm a whole force to be reckoned with at this age, more so than I ever was at 20. And so if you ask me which one I had to be, it's damn sure this age that I'm at now. But I also know some women are they're you know their realities are a little different, right? I've got a cousin, for example, who would much rather be the girl she was in her 20s because she was slimmer, right? She was probably hotter, right? She was probably me in 20. Does that make sense? So her reality is different, but my reality is very much like I'm proud of the woman I've become. Like I've got a lot of work to do, but I'm very much proud of who I am today, right? And so I would not change that to go backwards just to say I had a man, just to be married. None of that. Like I'm really liking my life right now. And I want to be very clear with you. This whole, well, first of all, I'm not understanding how. That's why I say this is what I always wondered is men say, well, a woman hit the wall at 30, 30, 30. Okay. But my thing about this is, so if she gets married at 22, it's naturally obvious most of these people are going to be divorced, and it's unfortunate. You don't want that to happen, but statistics say otherwise. So if she gets married at 22 and she stays with the man and gets divorced, that's seen as the exact same as a single mom who had sex and then had a baby. Like, it's very confusing to me because a woman who says, you know what, I want to get married, I want to go through the process, I had my kid in wedlock, yada, 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 right? Now, for whatever reason, the relationship did not work out. So I'm raising my kid. The difference with mine is, listen, y'all, I'm proud of the things I did in my life because I'm realizing if I was some of these women, I wouldn't have my kid on purpose. But I'm just saying, now I'm stuck with a kid, and now as a man, instead of understanding my plight, you're telling me I'm bitter, I'm just no good, I hit the wall, I'm all of these things, even though I did what you said I should have done, which was get married young. A lot of women are coming out of that realizing they were too young to be married, especially American women. Mexican women, not so much. Their culture is a little different. American women, Last time I checked, I didn't know that women were getting married as young as 20. Not in our cult, not in the American culture. Maybe some whites, maybe some whites. I could totally see that just because of the maturity level. But outside of that, I don't know too many people that at 20, like, I don't know. I just, even though it was presented to me, and I had everything, and the man I remember had everything, but it was like, I'm not ready for that. It didn't mean that I was out being fast, sleeping with every dude here and there. It just meant I don't even know what I'm doing in my own life, let alone just up and getting married. Like at 20, 21, 22, when you have no guidance, right? No real mentorship, you kind of feel lost. And in my opinion, to jump into a relationship, a marriage, while I felt lost, I'd still be lost. The only thing is, I'd be unhappy, miserable, and lost. Because a man is at that age, you're so impressionable that he could have came in, and because I was so lost, I would have just followed him everywhere, which I still am very much the same way, which is why I'm not in a relationship. I know that I love hard, so therefore the person that gets that love from me is got to be for me. But at that time, when you're young and you don't, and y'all got to understand, at that age, I had bills. I was living on my own. So I could not afford to just fall into anything. Now, would that have excelled my life further? Maybe. But everything the man could have offered, I already had in terms of finances at that time. So it's like, I don't, for me personally, I don't believe in jumping in relationships. But then again, I understand why people do, because I was one of those where I would jump into a relationship lost, but the relationship helped to distract me from my lostness, if that makes sense. Never added any value, but it definitely helped to distract me. So I want to say this: a woman's intuition is very strong, but y'all keep calling 22-year-old girls women. They're not fucking women. They're women by age, but not by mentality. Not in the slightest. Intuition takes time to hone. It takes time to really strengthen, to where again you're not sitting around questioning yourself. So to all these folks that are like, well, what happened to women's intuition is a real thing, but it only happens when the woman knows who she is and has a backbone enough to say, nope, I'm not tolerating this. Nope, I'm not dealing with this. Nope, I deserve better from the jump. Like I said, if a lot of women knew how to hone in their intuition, there would be a lot of men without a girl from the very beginning. I said what I said. I'm out. Peace.